Okay, if you ever meet Scott Ginsberg, you won't have to worry about forgetting his name.
Because he wears his name on a tag
all day, every day, for the rest of my life. Sometimes, too. Yeah, that's how I roll. See, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that consistency is far better than rare moments of greatness. This is something I learned from my grandparents. I want you to take a careful look at the expression on my grandmother's face. And in case you were wondering, this is where I get it from. In 1973, my grandfather started his very first company in St. Louis, Missouri. And they would drive around St. Louis in this giant truck with a sign that said, mostly closeouts. And on the top, as you can see, they had their logo and their mascot, the little dude in the tuxedo. And if you can see it, what does it say on the top of the wagon? Closeouts with... That was their company. That's who they were. And similar to yourselves, similar to any company, my grandfather faced the challenge of, well, how are we going to stick ourselves out there? What can we do to get noticed and get remembered and get business? So the challenge was that they attended these trade shows, huge trade shows like at McCormick Place, 10,000 people every month, all vendors all over the place, and essentially a difficult situation to become not the observer, but the observed. And he had this idea. He said, well, at a trade show, people wear, I don't know, maybe a suit and a tie, maybe a shirt and a tie, or a logo on their button-down shirt. What outfits could we wear that is consistent with who we are that would get people to approach us? What outfits do you think they wore? Tuxedos, top hats. The only picture known in the history of my family of the original tuxedo posse. From right to left, we got my mom in the front, my aunt on the top, we got my grandmother. On the right corner is my grandpa. And then in the top middle, the only person cool enough to wear sunglasses in the picture, my dad. And what would happen is that my grandfather would teach everybody in the company, okay, when we're walking down the aisles of these trade shows, 3 things are going to happen. First, people, they have to look. You can't not look at a posse of tuxedo-wearing men and women at a trade show. Second thing that's going to happen, guys, is people, they have to approach you. They have to come up. And number 3, they're going to ask you, "What? Are you guys with the Magic Company? What's the deal with the tuxedos?" Huh. Sound familiar? And every time somebody would ask, and this probably happened to them 100 times a day, people would come up and they would give the same answer to everybody. We're the Ginsbergs. Closeouts with class. Classy products, classy people. And that was it. That's who they were. That was the identity. That's how they stuck themselves and their ideas and their identity and their brand and their company out there. And the cool part was everybody remembered it. Everybody started buzzing all about, oh yeah, the tuxedo guys. Oh yeah, closeouts with class guys. And 10 years later, the first major article in a local paper put out about the concept of the wholesaling nature, about closeouts with class, and of course, about the tuxedos as the brand image of this company. And now, 36 years later, people still remember it. This is my dad and my grandpa. My grandpa's the older one. And my dad likes to remind me, he says, well, people might remember your idea a couple years later, but you know it's good when 35 years later, people still remember what you did. And I wanted to share this example with you for 2 reasons. Number 1, my family kicks ass. Number 2, what this represents is the support system that has enabled me to push through challenges to commitment. The same challenges to your commitment and your consistency as a representative of this organization, the support system will pull you through. And I always think back to the one particular moment. See, people ask me all the time, like, Scott, you've been doing this for 9 years. Have you ever thought about quitting? Just taking the name tag off, giving it up? What do you guys think? Yes or no? January 15th, 2005. It was 4 in the morning and I was at a bachelor party, which is a really terrible way to start a story. I was sitting down with my friend Andy, and Andy was at the point, he had drank a couple of, he had a case of, I'm going to go with Natty Ice. Ugh, that's a St. Louis thing. And Andy was at the point of intoxication where, if this is belligerent drunk and this is annoying drunk, he was right in the middle, philosophical drunk. You know, Scott, the whole name tag thing is pretty cool, but, I mean, you got to admit, it's getting kind of old. I mean, you wear a name tag every day. I mean, that was fun for a while, but come on, aren't you going to get a real job? It's not a unique idea. Anybody could have done that. I could have done that. What do you think of that? Huh. Nice friend. Left the party at about 5, crawled into bed, and I didn't sleep that night because this was the only moment. I literally sat there in bed for the next 5 hours, and those 4 words were chiming like church bells. Anybody could have done that. Anybody could have done that. And I had to be honest with myself and say, okay, should I give this up? Should I quit? Is it really not going to make any money? Is this a big joke? And eventually, I couldn't sleep. It's just not going to happen. So I get up, and I go downstairs, and I see my dad. See, at the time, I was still living with my parents, where after college, I did live for 2 years, 8 months, and 29 days. And I tell my dad this story, and my dad has this way about him when you know he's going to teach you an important lesson when he responds to your story with a 4-letter word. He just looks at you and says, putz. And he said, Scott, your friend Andy is right. And I was like, what? He said, Scott, I want you to listen very carefully. It's not about the name tag. See, anybody can go to Staples and buy a couple name tags and stick them on, and people will probably say hi to you. That might be different, but what is unique is not that you wear a name tag, but that you actually made a career out of wearing a name tag. It's not about the name tag. And those 4 words just kept in my head, and that's all he said. That was the end of the conversation. So I left. I actually ran into Andy, the guy from the bachelor party, a couple of weeks later, and I said, hey, Andy, remember a few weeks ago at that bachelor party we were talking late at night about the name tag? No, not really. Well, I've been thinking about what you said, and I had 2 thoughts that I wanted to share with you. And these are the last 2 thoughts I'm going to share with you, and then I'm done. Okay, Andy, let's see. The first thing you said was, wearing a name tag. Anybody could have done that. You could have done that. You know what? You're right. I fully admit you could have done this. But you didn't. And the second comment that I offered to Andy, the same thing I'll close with this morning. I said, Andy, the other comment was, wearing a name tag is not unique. You know what? I once again fully agree with you. This is not unique. But Andy, if you think that this whole thing is about wearing a name tag, if you guys think that everything we've talked about today has been about wearing name tags, then you haven't been listening. See, after 2,995 days, if there's one overriding lesson I've learned, it's ideas are free, but only execution is priceless. My name is Scott. Stick yourself out there.